Hey humans, how's it going? Susan Ruth here. Thanks for listening to another episode of Hey Human Podcast. This is episode 128, and I had a Skype conversation with the lovely Rachel Kaden. She's a documentary filmmaker, writer, actor, director, and she is an advocate for veterans' mental health. The project she's working on currently is a documentary entitled Man Down, and it focuses on PTSI, post-traumatic stress injury, and veteran suicide. It is alarming the rate at which veterans commit suicide when they get back from their missions, and for Rachel, the conversation gets very personal very quickly, and you will hear why, of course, as you listen. When we recorded this, it was September, and I had just started my braces, so you will notice I am lisping a lot, and hopefully that won't be too distracting in the conversation. There's not much I can do about it at this point, except for know that I realized pretty quickly that I can't wear those things while I'm talking because it makes it harder to understand what I'm saying. I know that now, but of course when I first got them I didn't, so just bear with me, and that is the deal there. I'm sure you understand. I got 5 more weeks and then I'm done with those. So all right, usual stuff, social media, Hey Human Podcast. Email me, Susan, at heyhumanpodcast.com. I'm going to have a lot of links, as always, for this episode on Hey Human Podcast website, and I encourage you to check out those links. Especially Rachel has given me a lot of information to share with you all, so definitely please check all that out. Keep an eye on those around you, and if somebody seems blue or despondent or showing some signs that they're not being their normal selves, definitely reach out. You know, we need each other. Let them know you're there and that they can talk to you, and just be a friend and show your heart. It sometimes just takes a single word, So anyway, thanks for listening, and here we go. Rachel Kaden, thank you for being on Hey Human.
Thank you for having me.
It's wonderful to see you across the miles.
I know.
Where are you hailing from in England?
From London.
Okay.
So I'm in the capital. I'm actually at Jodie's house, my agent's house now.
Hi, Jodie.
Yes, I'll pass it on. I'll say hello. But we've been rehearsing for his play.
He has what play?
It's called The Unspoken. And it's performing in Barons Court Theatre, which is a small, really famous little theatre. It's like an amazing space. It's like a haunting tale of a blind girl that stays at home, and her father's quite abusive. So yeah,
he's a really great writer.
Oh yes,
I read
the play is phenomenal.
The Moors. Did you read that book?
I was so angry with the ending because obviously the first thing is that during reading it, I was like, oh, I wonder if this is going to happen. Will this happen? And Jodie would just look at me and smile.
I know it. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. Somebody needs to make that into a movie.
Well, yes, that has to happen, I think. I completely agree.
It would make a good play, too, actually.
Yeah, and because it's all set in one place, not mainly set in one place, you could co-produce it now because we came up with the idea.
I am in. Anything to get me into London with a paycheck would be nice. I would love that.
Anything to get most people living in London a paycheck would be nice,
Right? It looks really sunny there. Is it nice?
Yes, it's been so hot today. So I was actually worried because I'm so fair-skinned. I might actually have burnt a little, but we'll hope for the best.
I spent a month in London in August in 2003, I think it was. And I was shocked at how hot it was.
Yes, yeah. That's because we've always talked about being rainy and grey and miserable. But actually it's horrible when it's hot here because we have no idea what to do with it.
And it's really humid. It's super humid.
Yeah.
When I was a little girl, I lived in Cambridge.
Oh, no way.
I used to have an actual English accent and everything. I'm very mad that I don't have that anymore. I'm very mad about it.
Can you still do an English accent?
I can, yeah. And when I sing, people, or if I've had a few too many cocktails, people are like, why do you all of a sudden have an accent? I was like, oh, it's in there somewhere, buried beneath the American.
Amazing. I love that.
So the brain somewhere, when it gets just inebriated enough, there's a few, but I could probably, like if I had to act in something, for example, it probably wouldn't take long to.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. All right, but enough about me. We are talking because Jody connected us, and again, Jody Medlin, awesome guy, great writer in his own right, and playwright now. I did not know that, so that's exciting. Yes. By the way, when can people see you in the play?
When can people? Oh no! I am assistant director.
I'm so sorry. I thought you were acting because you act as well. Yes, I do act as well, and I will be doing a play this year, but I'm not sure which one it will be. I have a very small, theatre group that I joined, but no, I'm helping him. I'm stepping in for a few days at the end where he can't be in London. So I've been watching some very talented actors, much more talented than me, rehearse, and it is just, it's just amazing watching people put hard work and talent together. It's magic. Yeah, there is something very special about watching actors in a theatrical sense. Yeah. It's almost otherworldly, I think.
Yeah, it is, because, we're sitting out on a rooftop. We've created the space, and, some of the things that come out of this play, they really disturb you. I mean, it takes you on a real journey. I'm like, wow, I'm feeling this. There's no other setting than these people just reading their lines and being a character, and it's so powerful.
I think sometimes human beings forget how to feel, or they've desensitized themselves so much, or checked out so much, that it's exciting when, movies or books or theaters evoke that in us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a way that a lot of people manage to be able to feel, and they can share emotions through films and music and books and, all types of creativity, really.
Yeah.
So, I read something the other day. It was quite funny about next time someone says, why don't you get a real job, like in the creative industry, ask them not to watch sports, not to watch movies, TV, read a book for a month, or play music, and then ask them if we're wasting our time. So.
Exactly. And I love reading so much. I love music as well, but I love reading. And when a book really gets you and you're sobbing or laughing, it's extraordinary to think that in someone else's mind, they created this group of people that you're now reading about that's evoking such a powerful response.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I know. It's incredible. And I actually think that's where film, has to really step up their game a bit. Because with a book, it's your imagination. With the film, you're feeding so much to the audience, but you have to allow them to still engage with their own creative mind as well. So it's a bit...
It's a perfect segue, my dear. All right, so you are, in fact, a filmmaker. And
I am.
You went, so I wrote, you studied film at London Metropolitan University.
I did, yes.
All right, and and you've also created not just the film that we are about to talk about, the documentary we're about to talk about, but I looked on your IMDb as a film called Journey, a film called Minds Matter, which is about mental health.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And you worked with the Spiral of Containment.
I did, yes.
Which is extraordinary, and she was on the podcast as well.
Yes, I had a listen of that one, so yeah, I heard her on there.
It was hard because the sound, we were all over, I can't remember if she was in Brazil or she was somewhere, maybe she was in Australia or something, and I at the time was in New York, so the sound quality was trying to ping all over the universe, but anyway.
Well, it sounded good. It sounded like you were connecting from someone across the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's good.
So I want to start, let's start, you are about to decide what to do with your life to go to university, and had you always wanted to do the filmmaking?
So I actually hadn't considered filmmaking. I'd always preferred acting, and I studied that at college, and then I was trying to push my career as an actor, but something was always, I was holding me back, but it always felt a bit kind of a struggle. And then I went round, the rhubarb, as my dad says, and just did a whole load of different things. I tried writing a book. I was a nanny. I was a personal trainer. And I thought, let me try acting again. I'll just go and do a student film. Just nothing, no pressure. And I watched these guys working together, a great group of guys. And I thought, there's one thing missing, and it's just that extra thing with the actors. Like, I just wanted to feel just something more with the actors. And I thought, you know what? That's because you know how to do this. And it's not them doing something wrong. It's you finding a way in to do something that you could love. And I'd written plays and short films and feature films and TV pilots, just, I had them piling up. And I was working with a friend who knew how to make films. And he, unfortunately, got very ill and he couldn't do it anymore. And I thought, I'm only stuck because I don't know how to technically make a film. That's absolutely non-excusable. Like, it's ridiculous. So why don't you go and learn? And I thought, as a mature student, go to university, spend 3 years practicing my craft and get myself ready to leave. And that's what I did, really.
That's wonderful. Now, there aren't a ton of female filmmakers, so it's always exciting. I imagine within the program itself, that excites the professors to see. I do find it interesting whenever you read an article about filmmaking, they make sure to mention the gender if it's a female. Yes. Like, it's some extraordinary feat.
Yes, and also your background, your ethnicity now helps. It's like there's now a platform where actually diversity is being celebrated. So it's great. I do find it quite funny that when I've done like more of the corporate work and stuff like that, I turn up with my camera to film. And I'm not a camera expert at all. I have a lot to learn, but you have people that work in an office telling me how to use a camera and film. And they're always men telling you as a woman. But when we have the male crew, they're not being told at all how to use that camera. So you kind of do get a lot of being told what to do. And I have a lot of arguments on set about small technical things that that really matter in post-production. And I'm always told I'm wrong. And then I get to post-production and I sit down with an editor and they say, you crossed the line here, or you should have done that. And it's like, I know, I should have just stood up. You're arguing with like 3 or 4 guys and you kind of get back down. So you've got to learn to be really tough.
Yeah. Do you have female filmmakers that you really admire? Anyone come to mind?
I recently watched a film called Miss You Already, and that was directed by Catherine Hardwicke. Now, I actually don't know loads of the rest of her work, but I saw this film, and if you haven't seen it, watch it. It is the most emotional journey you could go on, and it is the most simplistic storyline about 2 friends. But every single person could relate to it in some way, because it takes you through your childhood and how your childhood comes into adulthood and teaches about love and loss and fighting and making up. And that was really beautiful for me.
I really admire filmmakers because as I'm watching a movie and I try not to put them into compartments as I'm watching, but I can't help myself sometimes. But to the light, and which I know, the director of lighting and all the different parts of it, and to think that the filmmaker is seeing this whole thing at once, and that every little nuance matters, and if you get it wrong, it's so glaring.
Oh yes, it's. I don't think people often realise what goes into making a film. So. As a filmmaker, you're taught to look at everybody's films and criticise and find what's wrong and what could be better. And actually, I've always had a problem with that because making a film is so hard. So even if you make a really bad film, that's a lot of people putting in a lot of work. But it's all those little details that you're not meant to appreciate consciously as an audience. It's everything subconscious. And I think when you're watching a film, hopefully the people making it have all put in their own little minuscule amounts of detail and care, that there is always something to appreciate. Yeah. Even if it was just what they were trying to do.
Right.
I think it's something to appreciate.
Right. And some films, of course, go down in history as being so bad they're great.
Yes, exactly, and they become part of your favourites, and
the cult followings and things. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was listening to a podcast a while back with an editor who was talking, I think it was about Quentin Tarantino, saying that he would never, ever put a movie down. He'd always come out and be like, oh, it was great, it was great, it was great. And if it wasn't him, then I apologise. But yeah, that attitude, I think, is what we need to have in this industry. Let's find good, build more of that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sorry I keep hacking at you. I feel terrible.
No, it's fine. As you said, it's human. You know?
I
Sometimes
know. Darn it! I wanted to be better human today. In your body of work, it's very. Speaking of human, it is very much about the human experience, but on what might be considered a darker side of it.
Yes.
What draws you to that?
Oh, that's a very good question. So, well, I had quite an interesting life growing up. As I guess I was around a lot of different types of people that went through some, really bad things and some great things. I had, very friends that had no money, friends that had some money, that were bullied, that were beaten, that were, awful things could happen to them. I lost my mum when I was young. So I guess, from a young age, I was going out and doing things that a child shouldn't be doing, getting in trouble. And I just saw a different side of the world. So I guess in some way, through, my own trauma and other people's, I took something from each of those. And one thing that I've always been really amazed by is how much pain connects us all, but that we all stay so individual with our pain. So I think in some ways my storytelling is a way of saying, especially with my last film, it centered around a father losing a son. Now, I haven't lost a child, but I think everybody could appreciate that must be the worst kind of pain to feel when it comes to death. So every person that's ever lost anyone would feel that isolation, that loneliness, that feeling that it's not fair, that it's unjust. And, without knowing it, if they talk about that film, they're connecting in some way.
Yeah, I mean, it's really beautifully said, for sure. We hate our pain, but how much we grow from it is... I hate to say it, but I think we grow from our pain far more than we grow from the happy moments. It's a real bummer.
I actually always say it. Through pain we grow, and it's through the happy times that we enjoy and make memories. It's the happy times like a reward for all the lessons you've had to learn from pain, I think.
Yeah. Kevin Williams is the subject of the documentary Man Down, which is this the most recent project for you? Because you just mentioned another project. Is that the one you were referring to?
So the film I just referred to is the short film that I just made, I think that you saw on IMDb, Journey. And then, Man Down is now the one I'm in development of.
Okay, so Man Down is Kevin Williams' story. And had you known him before?
Yes, so I've known, I had known Kev for about, coming up to 10 years, I think it was. And he was... he basically, the only way to describe him was a brother. I met him and he was an annoying little pest that I just couldn't shake off or ever get tired of. And he found me exactly the same. And we would just tell people, well, this is my brother, this is my sister. It just was so normal. And I made a 3-minute documentary on him at the start of my university. I had to do a small documentary. And we just planned from there, let's make a feature length. And of course, sadly, he took his life this year, and now I'm just going to do it in his honor.
Yeah, I'm so sorry for that. It's awful.
Thank you.
Did he go off to Afghanistan or Iraq?
So he went out to Iraq, yes. He went to Basra. He was sent there the day after his 18th birthday. He was the youngest rifleman to go out to Iraq. And... Yeah. I mean, he was trained to shoot. He wasn't trained to be, fixing vehicles and stuff. So he really was there with the action.
Yeah, they're trained to kill, basically.
Yeah,
not just shoot, trained to kill. And through that service, he came home and had PTSD. Yeah. So I mean, I actually think that
when soldiers are going out on tour, in whatever capacity that they're going out, that they're all going to come back and in some way be affected with PTSD, because their training alone is teaching them new survival skills. It's teaching them new dangers that you are not used to in the civilian world. So, you know, he did come back, and I don't think it hit him for a couple of years. He didn't know about it straight away. He just felt sad a lot of the time. That was what he said. He lost a friend out there, a very, very close friend out there, and that he always blamed himself for. You know, he just didn't know how to fit back into the world at all. I remember, and it's the example I always use, that, you know, if a balloon popped near him, it would completely freak him out. Top would be off. He would be screaming, shouting. He wouldn't be in reality in that moment. And then he'd have to come out of reality and everyone looking at him, judging him. Yeah, it was extreme. And then there were times on his own he just felt sad, just like he didn't have a place in the world at all.
It is very strange to me that in the military they spend 4 to 6 months training you to be a hive mind. They remove your individuality. They train you to kill, of course. Mm-hmm. It's part of the job. But when you've served in the military and your tour is over and you come home, there's not 4 to 6 months of, I don't know what you want to call it, deactivation, rehumanization, reintegration. They spend all this money. Well, you know, it's almost as if they, dare I say, don't care what happens once these people have served their time. And I say their time as if it were prison, because I've interviewed prison folks who have served the military as well and are now in prison, and they feel more comfortable in a prison environment because it mirrors so much the military environment.
Yes.
That says a lot.
Yes. I mean, well, first of all, one thing that's really hard here in the UK that I think different in the US and in Canada is that we don't record the statistics of, for example, veteran suicide. So we don't have an official way of being able to monitor how many lives are really affected and lost after they've left. So we often, veterans here will feel like, and they will describe it as, once you leave the army, the door is closed and you are completely gone. But I do think that soldiers all around the world actually feel that. I don't, you know, I think that's the same. It's just we can't monitor it as well as when I look up and do research in the US. I'm finding so much more information that helps me understand how big the problem is.
Yeah, there are many veteran programs here for when people get out, but the facilitation of those programs is not the way it should be. No. I'm curious, why do they not track those statistics?
Well, I got one answer. It was about money, that nobody would invest the money in it. They really want to, but they would have to pay our National Health Service for the records, and that would cost more money than people are prepared to invest.
But they'll spend $1 billion on a freaking bomb that they have already 80 of. It's so maddening. Yeah. It's so maddening.
It's what the problem is that there's not enough preparation for the emotional trauma you're going to face as a soldier. Because, you know, and I'll mention, actually, I get a lot of my information from a wonderful man named Lee, who runs Save Our Soldier, which is a UK-based charity that really approach PTSD totally differently. They have a sister charity in America. I think it's the Elk Institute, as far as I believe. And you know, again, as he has explained it to me, you know, just being trained to go to war, your brain has been altered, you know, being trained. But the images, the information. So it is definitely a cause for concern that these young people are not being trained on those effects. You're also taught about, you know, man up, keep fighting, soldier on, and then you go out there. God knows what you're going to see. Whatever department, whatever, you know, your role is in the army, you're part of a group of people that are very close together, saving each other's lives, from the person that's cooking food to the medic to a rifleman. And then you come back, you're completely thrown out without any kind of, like you said, debriefing, like any program. And then you're expected to go and get your own help. So hang on a second, man up, soldier on, keep going, keep fighting, but go and find your own help and tell everyone you're weak. It should be mandatory that if you're going to sign up to the army, you have a program that you must go through. And interestingly, actually, Lee from Save Our Soldier has a fantastic one, but again, it comes to money, it comes to what that they're prepared to spend. So it's awful. It's really awful.
It is awful. And you bring up a good point, too, that when these young people, men and women, are put together and they form a very tight bond because, A, their life depends on it, and B, of course you would develop familial bonds with the people that are going through this same insane experience. And then what are the people that do take a life? How do you... The soldier brain has a directive. The civilian brain understands what taking a life actually means, and just because somebody is on the opposite side and they're the enemy, but we're the enemy too. It's like the concept of enemy is such a weird concept. And you have to be taught.
Stories where where opposing sides will make friends for a day, or there's friendly fire being shot back and forth, and it kind of becomes a routine, between these two, exactly as you're saying, enemies. And you do know what you're doing, but you're being told to do it for your country, and it is. And don't get me wrong, actually one thing I've learned in my own research, as a complete hippie myself, it's like, make love, not war. We need a defense system. I mean, especially if you compare US and UK, we are very powerful countries because we have a very, very strong defense. So we can't, you can say you don't like war, but, we have to appreciate that we have the freedom to say that because we have strong defenses in our country.
Absolutely, without a doubt. I am in awe, and I honor and thank the service that these people do. I certainly couldn't do it. But it upsets me to no end that we expect these men and women to go experience this, and that we do not cradle them in the arms of thanks and protection and help and mental and physical well-being, financially, all those things when they return.
Yeah.
That is just, to me, that is so maddening. That's my issue.
I know.
I have no problem with people signing up. I mean, there are lots of reasons people go and join the service, and I understand that. Some do it to get out of poverty, some do it to get out of prison, some do it because there's a promise of education on the other side. Some people do it because they truly want to do it because they think that they owe it to their country, and I applaud all of those reasons. I get it. That's not where I really have the faults is the aftercare.
Yeah.
If you went and had surgery, they wouldn't just send you out into the street afterwards and be like, all right, well, good luck with those sutures. And, you have to go find your medicine somewhere, I don't know where, and try not to get an infection. They don't do that.
Yeah. No. And the physical rehabilitation is actually quite good. And that's the problem. It's that, well, first of all, we know from enough studies around the world that any kind of emotional stress and trauma actually affects us physically. So it's in physical interest to look after people emotionally. And soldiers are going out there believing they're doing something very honourable. And many of them say that, when you discover a lot of the real reasons that they're fighting, it's not the same. And, they will never break their code. They're part of something strong. But it's like we all know that there's a economic value in war. We know that it's making some people very wealthy somewhere. So that's fine. Okay, you've got these people going out and really risking their lives for all of us to be very powerful and free. Look after them. That's it. Just simple as.
Yeah.
Just help them as much as you can, because I was reading recently a book by Johann Hari called Lost Connections, an amazing book. It talks about depression and anxiety in detail, but one thing it does mention is that the lack of connection, human connection, is one of the, is a massive contributor to us feeling depressed and anxious. Loneliness is almost as toxic as, smoking and drinking, all of that. So imagine being part of, they often say a brotherhood, which is just that shows how there's a lack of females in the army. But, you have this brotherhood, you have this connection, and then you're just thrown away. So you've gone from depending on other people for your lives, sharing every terrifying moment, to being left on your own, disconnected, uncared for.
That's right.
What do you expect to happen?
Yeah. You made a comment a second ago that was really interesting. You know, the aftercare, let's say you lose a limb, right? You come back, the aftercare for losing body parts like that is good. You know, they'll help you with that. But the brain is still a part of the body.
Yeah.
They seem to, there's the disconnect. The brain is a major part of the body. It is the biggest, you know, it's the showrunner.
Yeah, it is. And you know, and also how a soldier is seen whilst they are serving is incredible. You know, I mean, I don't know if it's true. I always see in movies and TV in America that they always get up off their seats to let someone sit down if, you know, if they're first class or whatever. But, you know, we give them so much honor, and we have all these, you know, Remembrance Day, stand tall for our soldiers, all of this. But what we're not remembering when we do that is that before they joined the army, they were a person. They joined the army, they served, they've gone through all of this. For the rest of their lives, they're now going to be affected. And often, when you're watching people go to these people, and I'll say people because soldier is just something that they have done and they have become. When they go to prison, when they're on the streets, when they're drinking, when they're having, you know, PTSD moments where they're completely having meltdowns and we're judging, you know, that is a soldier. If you're going to celebrate the honor of them fighting, you must help them when they're struggling among our community, among civilian life, because that's all we know. They know more than that. So, you know, returning to us, it's so hard for them, and we're so unwelcoming.
I know. It's awful. So as you were working with Kevin, first of all, how did you approach him and say, hey, I'd like to do this documentary? I mean, because, again, there's that soldier on feeling, so for him to even say, I have these issues, this is going on, is already extraordinary. And then to let you in.
Yes. Well, we talked, one of the biggest things we talked about actually was his feelings of not wanting to be here, his PTSD, how much he really struggled a lot. We connected a lot through that. So we were very comfortable talking about things quite seriously anyway. And I think it was a case of me ringing him up or voice noting him and saying, oi, I'm going to do a documentary on you. Your life's amazing. Let's talk about it a little bit and inspire some people. And he was always very humble, but he did secretly love the attention. So, you know, he was very much like, oh, who's gonna want to watch that? I guess I have had quite an adventurous life, but who's going to want to watch it, Rach? And then, you know, when we talked about it seriously and what he could do, and it was a connection still with being in the army, you know, he was all in. He loved it.
Yeah. Did you see it start to deteriorate his well-being?
So something I find really hard is that talking to someone so often about feeling suicidal, what's quite terrifying is it becomes quite normal. It's only in hindsight that I could see little signs where maybe I should have gone, well, this could be a bit more serious. But the pattern was so normal for me for years, you know, not just for 1 or 2 years, for the whole time I'd known him, like almost a decade, that, you know, it was actually the fact that he was becoming almost better that actually should have shown me that something was more wrong, which is, you can only reflect on in hindsight. He was trying to build new careers. He was getting excited about more things. He was much more upbeat when I was speaking to him. And I thought, you know, I knew he still struggled. We still spoke a lot when he was down. But I thought, you know, this is great. Maybe he is starting to try and find his way. But I think often people say when just before someone takes their life that they become happier or they become calmer or, you know, they didn't seem as bad. So, yeah, I think in hindsight there's a lot of things I wish I'd noticed, but you just can't know, because also when you are suicidal, often it's just a moment that you can go, right, this is the moment, and then you can stop yourself from that moment. And you know, so I wish I'd have done more. There's a lot more I wish I'd have done, but you can't. I mean, I could say that forever, right?
Yeah,
you know,
and it's just like there's nothing that he could have done other than serve his country and do what he was supposed to do, and whatever feelings he had about that, he was doing his job, you know, and, and we can only do so much. Human beings are on their path, and we can try and interject, but as you and I both have known people who have taken their own life, nothing can stop a person if they're that determined. And it can be the difference of 2 hours.
Yeah, I know.
It's I don't want to say it's crazy, it's a bad word. It's heartbreaking, first of all. But you can leave somebody and be like, okay, things are good, they seem good, but you don't know what's going on in there, and it doesn't have, and I'm saying this as like empathic to you, saying, I know it hurts, I know it sucks, but you couldn't have stopped something that was happening. You know what I mean? Yeah. And if you to carry that for you, that's a lot for you to carry.
Yeah, well, it is, and I think that's why I'm putting it massively into this documentary, and the documentary since has grown mostly from people I'm discovering and talking to, but it's grown into something that I think really could explore a solution rather than constantly talking about a problem.
Yeah.
But also in a way that I'm going to let everybody who watches it, hopefully across the whole world, just get to fall in love a little bit with who this absolute crazy wind-up was. You know, he just loved to wind people up, but he was also, you know, for a soldier, for a rifleman, he, you know, would spend his last money sharing his lunch with a fox that was too skinny, or bringing in animals, or looking after old people and kids. You know, there was no one he wouldn't make time for. And I think his story is going to help educate a lot of people, and that would definitely make him very happy.
That's wonderful. And again, you make a very excellent point. I had coffee with my friend Doug the other day, and he was talking about how it frustrates him so much that we talk about all the things that are wrong, but very seldom do we talk about all the ways to make it right. The wrong, because we're so caught up in the emotion, as I just went on that whole monologue about what frustrates me about the military. And I don't necessarily know what makes things right other than provide them with aftercare. So for you to say that it's like this is about what to do to change things is wonderful. Yeah, it is. And I've spoken to quite a few charities and quite a few people who, you know what they're talking about. And again, you know, like I said, like, we're really excited to be speaking with Lee from Save Our Soldier, because his approach is, just to summarize, he doesn't call PTSD post-traumatic stress disorder. He calls it post-traumatic stress injury. He looks at the way that the brain is affected and so many other factors. And he's saved, I think it's around 41 lives so far with his approach. But the best thing he said to me, just to explain to anyone like you or I, any civilian, just how traumatic PTSD can be, the fact that it's called a disorder to a soldier who is taught to keep their whole life in order, to then even diagnose them with something that goes against everything they've been conditioned to do, is already disorientating. So forget the medical stuff behind it, just the very definition of it. And that's what we do. I think our health services try their best to connect. They try their best to help veterans, but they don't know. Unless they've been out there, unless they really have studied this properly and been there and can completely understand, that soldier isn't going to open up to them as much as they could do. Is there a movement to change it to PTSI then? Instead of...
So I don't know if there's necessarily a movement. Perhaps there could be. Perhaps this documentary will help influence that, and that would also help Save Our Soldier do a lot more work, because hopefully they'd get a lot more funding. But I think there should be a movement to change it being mandatory to get soldiers back into a civilian life effectively. And around a support system of civilians that can also start learning how to understand what it's like, so that veterans don't feel like they're just in this one club, and that they can only really share and talk about that with other veterans. Maybe civilians, if they start understanding more, will accept what they've been through a lot better.
Yeah, excellent. So the short film already released, or did you hold on to it to do the long film?
Oh, you mean the short documentary? That was just a uni project. So actually, that's online, and that's on my YouTube and Vimeo. And The BBC used that recently to play a little bit of it. They did there's been a few actually articles and news pieces on Kevin. So that's just out in the world. But there's a lot of footage that I do have of him and a lot of audio interview I have of him talking in depth about how he felt. So, he will be, helping to make this documentary in his own way still. Like, he's left behind a lot of information.
Has it been difficult to find other veterans to talk to about this? Actually,
no, thankfully. Some of his friends that I've got in contact with, one particularly, his name's Nicholas Aitken-Smith. I met him at Kevin's funeral and spoke to him a bit about this, and he's been really helpful in putting me in contact with some others. And once they know that you kind of understand a little bit and you want to help, and that you are, that I knew Kevin and was close and we were working on this, they're a lot more forthcoming, because they're all very, very affected themselves by their own experience. And 12 weeks after Kev took his life, his friend and comrade took his life. Then I keep seeing from Kev's friends that I know online, posts pop up, another one, "Oh, we won't forget you, brother," another one, "We won't forget you, brother," and it's more and more. And so I think because somebody is trying to speak out on behalf of their family that they're losing, their military family they're losing, they really want to help get involved.
Yeah. Here, the statistics are right around 22 lives a day.
So that's what's going around on Facebook, actually. So it's that's the American statistic.
That is insane.
Lives a day. And the thing is, my question is this. So if we had regular civilians being killed every day, for example, whoever was responsible for that would really be in a lot of trouble. But actually, the Ministry of Defence, or any country's, Department of Defence, you are responsible for this, because you are training these, and a lot of them kids. Kev joined the army when he was 16, went to war at the day after he turned 18. You are responsible for doing as much as you can. Now, if they had a program, if everywhere had a program and you left the army, it was like, you must go through this 4-month program, we're going to do everything we can to help you, and you're going to get further support whenever you need it to come back to, and then 22 lives a day were still going, we'd be like, well, who's responsible? Because you are doing amazing work to try and help people, but you're not doing amazing work. And that's the saddest thing. If you speak to a veteran, they will never put down their comrades. They will only talk highly of serving their country and their time in the army. When you ask them how the military looks after you, their tone changes. Their tone completely changes, because there's that bittersweet, you made me, but you broke me. That's
well,
that's
and many of the people that I've spoken with, and also as you spoke to before, realized what it's all really about. They're not pleased.
No.
And a lot of them feel as if they were, duped.
Yeah. But you're in then.
Yeah,
you're in, and that's the new way of life. Like everything about, being a soldier, you're in it. That's who you are. That's your life now. So by the time you realize that, you might disagree with part of what you're fighting for or hate it, but you also know nothing else now. So.
That's right. And you want to protect your brothers and sisters, and the casualties of war within a government, that can blithely send people along.
Yeah.
Come what may.
Yeah. I think that was one of the things Kevin struggled with mostly, in reflection to the army, is that he really wanted to go back to being a soldier desperately. He trained as a mercenary. He went to go and join the French Foreign Legion. He wanted to be part of it, but he also didn't fully agree with what he was doing. So I think that was the hardest part for him. He didn't want to do what he had to do to be who he was. So I just think he felt there was no place for him. And it's time now that we say, look, we're not saying that we don't, that there's a place for you here, come back. We know that you will struggle to find your place here, but we will fight with you for that, just like you fought for us.
Right.
So it's got to be something that we don't say, no, we'll fix it. It's not about fixing. You're a new type of person now. Let's find a way for you to integrate back with us and connect.
They fought our war, now we need to fight their war. I'm
going to use that in the document. That's beautiful. It's so true.
I mean, I commend you for getting this out. Is there a main... obviously, you went into this with a lot of research, and you had Kevin as a sounding board and a touchstone.
Yeah.
Is there any aha moments that you had along the way that you were just either in a not necessarily negative, but in a positive way, just anything that really stood out as life-changing for you? Or
I think massively the documentary, because I'm not a military expert, and I'm not going to pretend to be, and I actually think I need to approach this film as a civilian that doesn't know that much, because then I can learn as the audience will learn along the way in the story. So, I want people to connect. But through investigating about PTSD, it actually, I've branched out to learn more about, just what makes us feel isolated and alone. And learning this disconnection from society, I think, is, first of all, a massive problem just in the Western world anyway. Let's just go with the Western world. But in terms of soldiers and understanding this lack of connection and how humongous the gap is, I think it's a real breakthrough moment to understand how we can fix it, because really connection is a big, big part of it. And also understanding how, again, like I mentioned with Lee, talking about your brain being retrained for new survival, to understand for all of us as humans, the things that we go through, retrain our brain for new dangers. So, we can look at each other's behaviors and start to understand where they must be coming from so much more, and where we come from ourselves, and how there's no set way of being normal. There's no set way of being. We're sculpted by everything, and connection and compassion has to come into our lives more. I think it might not sound so but that for me has been the biggest lesson so far in my research.
Yeah, it's beautiful. When will this be released and launched?
Well, that is the $1 million question right now. So, we're actually, we are at the very beginnings of production. We're still, developing a lot of the ideas, and we're in talks right now with some good people about getting on board and helping us produce this. But I think I could depending on what they say, that's going to change everything. But, I'm going to start doing some of our filming very soon. I mean, I could actually film this and have this ready very quickly if I get all the goes ahead. But it's all the admin stuff, the business side of it that leaves the question marks open. That's a very roundabout way of saying I don't know.
Totally understand. How might people track this? And not only that, but support it if somebody wants to help donate to the cause or be a part of it. So
massively at the moment, Jody at Penworks Media, he's put a little 2-pager up on his website, so penworksmedia.co.uk. And at the moment, that's where it's staying. But you can keep a track of me on Twitter and Instagram. It's just Rachel Kaden. Once I can start releasing things, I will. And then eventually, I'm sure we'll have all the Facebook pages and the websites. And once it becomes a fixed title, we can do that. But just keep an eye on what's going on. And also, I really encourage anyone that wants to add anything or talk or has a story of their own to get in touch with me. So maybe I'll leave you my email address, or you've got my email address.
I do, and I'll put it on the links page of heyhumanpodcast.com, and I'll put your email up there with a space so that the little robot spiders can't just automatically. Or if you prefer, they can email me, and I can then personally.
Whichever is best. Honestly, it's because right now we're still such early stages. It's hard. There's not just one direct way, because the project organically has just grown. So we are managing where it's going, and we're kind of going with the project.
Yes.
To make sure we tell the best story for Kev.
Are you going to try throughout to use the PTSI just to start getting it in the vernacular?
I think I might have to, actually, because I really do. I really like it. I really agree with it. So I think, and because, like I said, we're hoping. I mean, Lee is very, very involved with speaking with us now and very excited to be part of the documentary. So I think we'll have to take on his approach and respect that, because, you know, if it's working or helping, it's worth it, right?
Well, I mean, I think you nailed it when you said the stigma behind the word disorder is everything.
Yeah.
It's funny how words are
definitely
so very powerful.
Yeah.
You know?
I know.
Yeah.
I know. So.
Oh. Well, Rachel, you're delightful, and I'm so excited that you're working on this project, even though it comes from such a sad place. But
Thank you.
In all honesty, I feel like Kevin is probably extraordinarily proud of you and this work.
Thank you.
It's really lovely. Sorry, it makes me a little emotional.
That's why I'm holding mine back here as well, because it's tough, you know, like having to talk about this as from a filmmaker and business point of view, that you often forget you're human as well, and that you know, like I've lost someone who was my little brother. So yeah, it's an emotional roller coaster.
Yes, because of you, he will be immortal. You know, they say that you die 2 times. Your first physical death, and then the next is the last time somebody speaks your name.
Oh, yes.
So,
yes. Well, he'll be very happy to know that his name will be spoken forever.
Yeah, you've made him immortal, and that's a beautiful gift. You know?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very kind.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.